Oh, Hiroshima. If you know anything about global history, I mean anything about global history, then you'll understand why this one comes with a real severe content warning. Um, Frankly, if you're going to Hiroshima, there's like a 99% chance that you're going for one particular thing, or at least you will be doing one particular thing, among others, perhaps. It's important, I think, to do, but it's not easy. So, um, from the start, it's pretty much where we went. First thing, dropped the luggage off, went to see it. A-bomb dome. So it was, from what I remember reading, it was originally it was like a show floor, I think, for like businesses and trade shows and that. Um, and basically, I think it was the Fat Man, was it? Just went off almost directly above the centre. And it seems to be that as a result of it being directly above, the building has weathered most of the blast, and so is still standing, or most of it is still standing. There are very significant parts of it that just don't exist anymore, and the majority of it is in rubble and hasn't been cleared, just to leave it as like a standing monument to that horrible thing that occurred, and have signs all over the place explaining what the impact was and how wide reaching it was, how many people were killed, literally just removed by the blast, ensuing fires, the people returning to the region because they were homeless, and then suffering from whatever sickness and ensuing death that caused. And it's it was strange that the time that we arrived there, the sun was pretty much just at the peak of the building. If you stood in the right place, it was just sort of starting to go down a little bit, and it really framed it. And I mean, we did the tourist thing. We got a few photos, and that, yeah, fine. And then I don't know. I just had to go sit down for 10 minutes. It's not. It's unlike anything I've seen in my entire life. And I know that every nation has its own particular piece of history that is permanently etched into cultural consciousness. And, like, if you live in the UK, then chances are you got extensively talked about the Blitz and the blackouts and the, mucking together in the underground to avoid the bombings, and like, oh, we used to have a good old sing song in the underground to keep our spirits up, Dunkirk's, whatever. But like, and I mean, we get taught about the Normandy landings, and the things that are supposed to make us proud to feel British, and it's all so terribly blinkered. And then you go over to a country that absolutely, I'm not going to mince words, absolutely got its shit kicked in, and just getting on with it. Like, life still continues, and it is so difficult to see because they still remember. No one, you don't talk about it to visitors or anything, because why would you? I mean, we weren't typically talking to people much anyway. But there's still people going to the memorials and praying and just witnessing it, and they've still got placards up there. They've got like a little cenotaph with the names of everyone inside, and there's the memorial pools, and there's a flame there that's supposed to be left burning until such a time as the world finally declares peace with itself. And you just sit there and you just take it in, and you cannot begin to understand just the absolute just boundless despair of the whole situation. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been to a tourist attraction that actually made me cry. But yeah, and I mean, it isn't even my grief. It absolutely is not my grief. I mean, it's hard not to sympathise with it, even though I don't consider myself a particularly empathetic person. But anyway, so sure, we saw it. We got photos of it all. I feel like it was important to see it. I feel like more people should. I feel like it gives you a good understanding of why we should never think about doing it again. Anyway, uh, that was pretty much the entirety of the first day that we were there. But then a lot of the time you spend the morning travelling if you go into a new city, and then by the time you arrive at the destination, there's time for lunch, maybe one attraction or two, and then you go check in at the hotel, get yourself settled, work out where you're going to go for dinner. So, and to be fair, it was a big attraction, and there was plenty of time to be spent there. Uh, anyway, it felt a little odd to be stood within, you know, within a fifth of a kilometre of where it hit, and just like my actual feet just being there. I never experienced that again in my life, unless we go to Germany and I get to visit Auschwitz, which I would like to do as well for similar reasons. I feel like I should see that as well, but I think I'd enjoy that significantly less. But hey, um, there was one thing I got a note down about. We were just walking through the street and saw a couple of like European-looking fellas, possibly American. It's a bit hard to tell sometimes, just from facial structure and that. But just wearing anime shirts, I'm like, I kind of get it. I do kind of get it, but you know, like the locals don't do that, and you're looking way more touristy by doing it. And this is someone who's like, wearing a baseball cap and shorts, and like has a camera strapped to like a bandolier across one side of his chest, and the like these travel documents strapped across the other side of his chest. Like I was quintessential full on tourist, but like I don't know. So maybe it's not the best place to wear your anime shirt. I don't know. To be fair, if you want anime shirts, maybe there is nowhere else that you could wear them. I don't know. I wore video game shirts, so Mr. Potts is addressing the hue of Mr. Kettle with some disapproval. But hey, again, do what I say, don't do what I do, as they say. Um, anyway, setting me off now. Um, one thing, cities. A lot of people on dogs. A lot of people on dogs, but they're almost of always of like toy varieties. You get a lot of Pomeranians, a lot of little cutesy small things. I think it's to do with the amount of space people have in their homes, to be honest. But that just seems to be what's truly popular. Oh, and Akitas, obviously. You got your classic Doge, but and they are gorgeous. They look like a lot of fun. They're probably a nightmare to keep. Like huskies look fun, but I'd never keep one. Um, but yeah. Oh, and also everything, almost everything, has its own special mascot character. Um, Kumamon is one of the more popular ones, and he's just franchised out to anyone who'd care to use him, as far as I can gather. But a lot of places just have their own individual mascots. So, like when we went to, I think it was Matsumoto, there was like a specific mascot character to represent Mount Fuji. Like the mountain has its own sort of patron, cute chibi figurine that is used on all of the publications that are concerning Fuji. Um, but yeah, it does get a little weird sometimes. I think my favourite was the one that was the mascot for being responsible with your luggage on the train, and it was just like a little character with a piece of luggage for a head, who used to get like his head caught in the train doors and stuff. Uh, so yeah, we were staying in I was staying in a hotel in the middle of Hiroshima. Uh, we think that we got a particularly good experience there because it was probably their off season. But the one really striking thing about it was that if you go there, they had what they called a happy hour. Lasted 2 hours. I think it was 5 while 7. And the entire time, they just had free wine and biscuits with no limit, which comes up quite often in the hotel's reviews that, ooh, loved your free wine. And yeah, it is. It's just bottles of white, bottles of red on the side. Go and help yourself. It's amazing. Uh, but yeah, second day in Hiroshima, we went to Kure. Me and the father-in-law and the sister-in-law, although sister-in-law went back home because I think she was having just a bit of a bit of discomfort, I think. But yeah, it was just the two of us in the end, and did a couple of military museums. So Kure is a navy town. We were visiting because we were sort of trying to trace the steps of a like the sort of the British deployment over there, and we're trying to sort of do a bit of like military tourism because my father-in-law's got some involvement in that stuff professionally, um, and yeah, so I did the Yamato Museum, which is definitely worth it, although it does have some more distressing footage, which is pretty typical, I think, of Japanese military museums. They've got a pretty amazing replica of the Yamato, and also quite a lot about submarines, which is where I learned that there's such a thing as a kamikaze torpedo, which also upset me. Um, and then following on from that, right next door, there's a museum dedicated to mine sweeping and mine identification, which was also surprisingly interesting and came with a little replica of a submarine with all of the like crew quarters and all of the equipment and like a little working periscope that you could use to view out across the bay. So that was a pretty good time too. They also had a wee little mascot in there that it looked like a whale with a propeller that was just like a little anthropomorphized submarine that just scooted around and had a lovely time. And we were a little bit upset that you couldn't buy any like plushies of him because we absolutely would have. Um, I did wonder, looking at the Yamato scale model, whether or not if you got it in water it'd actually float, but I doubt it. Um, and one thing, absolutely amazing. So when we flew over, I brought along a. In fact, I've got it down here. My original Nintendo DS, including my Knuckles the Echidna phone charm and its upgrade to an AMD Athlon 2 processor and its Asus power supply. um, brought it along because it's got a notoriously beefy battery. Like this thing will run for days. Um, so I thought, well, we've got long flights, so if I bring a couple of RPGs and I think I brought a Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, then at least if I get bored on the plane, I've got something that I can just play for ages and I don't need to recharge it if there aren't any plug sockets available, you know. So just hedging my bets. So I brought that along and noticed in the Yamato Museum there was a DS logo on some of the placards. So went my DS out, checked the download play, and they still have a working DS specific audio track at several Japanese museums. And if you bring a DS and you hit the download option, you can just pull the audio tracks directly onto your console. I couldn't understand a word of it, and all the pictures were in like, you know, like potato resolution because it's old technology. But the fact that that still works absolutely delighted me. Uh, so there was that. There was a display of letters written by kamikaze pilots to their families before they went on their missions, which was also upsetting, especially the ones that we read that we translated. And it's quite firmly cemented my general historical opinion that most nations, most peoples were getting along sort of okay by themselves until the white people arrived. But what can you do? I know that's certainly true of white people, and meeting other white people, we generally don't get on very well. But anyway, goodness me. Um, One interesting thing though, wandering around the town, me and the father-in-law, the only time in my entire life I've experienced a situation where in an entire town, me and the person I'm with, or people I'm with, appear to be the only Caucasians. And I get it that it's not, you know, a Caucasian nation. So I was definitely in a minority over there. But to be the only white people that I think we met the entire day, even after going through a couple of museums and some attractions and, going to like food and stuff, was interesting. It wasn't a bad experience, but it was an interesting one. And one that I'm not sure I'll ever quite have again, because I think it was just like that perfect storm of like it not being a particularly heavy tourist area, not being many tourists in the area because of the whole visa thing, and I don't know, I don't know. It was interesting. Um, we did try to take some photos of a particular building that we'd uh, discovered was actually now very firmly behind the gates of a military installation, and that was when some pigeon, well, not pigeon, but it's a very, very basic Japanese and a couple of photos. We actually did manage to negotiate taking a couple of photos at the gates. Like, they were really surprisingly okay about it. And they had every right to just tell us, like, no, you are not taking photos of military buildings. You do not get to do that. That's not okay. But no, they were absolutely fine with it. I think it's because we'd expressed an interest in one very specific building and had quite an old photo to compare it to. So it's like we weren't just like, can we just take a photo of, your troop movements? But I mean, it was just a small naval installation. It's not like we're in wartime or anything. But still, it was very good and very accommodating, especially because we could only really communicate like 3 or 4 words. And I think I eventually managed to convey camera genki desu ka, and I think that just translates to "Is this camera well?" But he got the gist. I mean, I tried, right? Um, so there was that. Then the next day we went over to Iwakuni, saw the Kintai Bridge, which is I think it's a famous recreation. You get charged a fare for going across it. It's very spectacular, very worth seeing. It's a really beautiful and huge piece of kit. Then we went to Miyajima. Now then, Miyajima is one of those islands that has an indigenous deer population, but unlike well, they have a bit of an issue there that some of the deer have worked out tourists, and they'll come and they'll just hang around by the docks. And they have this whole thing where if a tourist comes anywhere near them, they just instinctively like bow, like they'll just sort of like incline the head and then just lock eyes with you because they've been taught to bow by the Japanese locals. And when they reciprocate in kind, they tend to get treats, or they have been given treats. Um, but it's apparently resulted in a population of deer who have now learned that they don't have to go out and, look for food like they normally would because all these guys coming off the boat have got food and they're happy to share it. And now you've got like a population of deer that just can't fend for themselves and or refuse to, and they're getting sick from eating like food that's not appropriate for them and like eating fast food wrappers and things. So the lifespan of the deer is going way down, and they're behaving strangely. They're not living where they're supposed to be. And I honestly, I got a lot of them don't look very well either. They look a bit mangy. They're covered in flies, and I got a very slight, I don't know, vermin feel about them. And they're not that much of a trouble, really. You just have to sort of keep your distance and not whiff food around them. But they are always around and always keeping an eye on you. But yeah, went to go see a particularly picturesque temple. I got some cracking photos off the side of the ferry. I got the sunset coming down over the mountains, which was kind of worth it. And went for our first sushi I don't think it was a super high-end restaurant, but we were stopping off for lunch, and it was the first place we'd seen off the boat, and it looked, we hadn't had sushi before, so it seemed fine. Um, and We get in and we order, and this lady who speaks some pretty reasonable English actually comes up to us, and she's putting the trays down, and she just says in what seemed like quite a desperate tone, "Please enjoy Japanese cooking." I'm like, okay. And I lifted the lid off of one of these bowls, and we all had one, and there was just like an entire fish head in there. And that was the point at which I realised, oh, you are meant to eat this. And I'm looking at this head, and it's looking back at me, and I'm like, all right, so, chopsticks, let's just work out how to get in at this then, shall we? And just start pulling off bits of this poor creature's face while it's looking directly at me with its dead, soulless eyes. It tasted fine. Tasted absolutely fine. Um, there was a deer just hanging around outside the front door, just staring us down, though, like waiting for someone to come and open the door so it could just burst in and steal food. So that was intimidating. um, and then went up a bit of an H trail. We were going to take a ride up a funicular, but got there a wee bit late. And that was pretty much our time in Hiroshima. Not a terribly long one, but we went for the A-bomb dome mostly, and then just a bit of sightseeing around the area. So yeah, did pretty much what we intended to.